All right, everyone, welcome back to this week's AMA Recap, brought to you by your Speed Stackin Weekly Recap team. Before we dive into it, I do want to say a quick shout out to Rhea, One Monomics X, and Surfer Girl, and the whole recap team for just putting together an absolutely amazing video that's going to be featured in this video today, along with condensing 4 AMAs across the last week into a simple 20-minute and 25, once we're done here, minute video for you all to take in those key value nuggets and put to your own use. Before we dive in, I will state that everything we say in this podcast is purely for educational purposes and not meant to be financial advice. We are not technically affiliated with the Steady Stackin NFT project, but we are built by the community for the community because we know that you can't always be at every AMA, so we're trying to bring you those key points from each AMA so that you can just sit down and get it all in one go. So, for this week's AMA recap, we have 4 banger AMAs crushed into 20 minutes of the key details that are going to be most important for you to know. Our first AMA featured Ready Player H and Xanshake with Neo Tokyo doing a AMA that was an intro to Steady Stack, NFTs, and their business case, some of the brothers' personal history, and an emphasis on the value of community. We really saw Xanshake dive into some of the technical aspects of the algorithm and how Steady Stack is more than just the algo. There are alpha callers, AMA, and investment opportunities. The brothers just gave this beautiful showcase of how Steady Stack has the potential to be the future of NFTs. Our second AMA this week was with Spectre, basically going over what Spectre is, how it works, and how it works to give small investors access to opportunities usually reserved for institutional investors, focusing on quality over quantity. They talked about how important early access is to ROI, and they gave examples of 2 projects from either end of the NFT spectrum, one game, one infrastructure/tech related. Our third AMA this week was with Brian, who sat down and shared his thoughts on Azuki after the founder confessed to multiple rugs in his past. He was talking about how important it is for a project to get their mint process right. He also was asked if flipping NFTs was realistic in the upcoming bear market and gave some general NFT and crypto market advice. Our final AMA this week was with Parzival, Mr. Gunnar, and Hustlepedia talking about crypto gaming. They're talking about how to choose a game and where to find those gem games where you can find those 10x's super early. And then they talked about their plan for Steady Stackers, basically saying that they wanted to have Steady Stackers join their team and look for the next generation of crypto games that are going to give us those solid 10x's. So with all of this in mind, we have a lot to get through in this week's AMA recap, and I want to dive straight into it with our first AMA from Xanshake, Ready Player H, featuring Neo Tokyo. See you guys there. Let me just switch over to my clip viewing tab here. And as I said, our first recap is going to be with Ready Player H and the Neo Tokyo AMA. On this AMA, he's going to be talking about basically giving an intro to the Neo Tokyo citizens about Steady Stack, NFTs, and the business case, some personal history, emphasis on the value of community, and how they're expanding their existing networks and activities into the current Steady Stack project. They're going to do some details on the technical aspects of the algorithm and how Steady Stack is more than just the algo, how there's alpha callers, AMAs, and investment opportunities, basically emphasizing that the algorithm is the backbone of utility, but Steady Stack is so much more than that. So with those thoughts in mind, let's dive right into this wonderful video put together by your AMA recap team.
Because at the end of the day, NFTs are businesses, right? And when NFTs are treated as, single standalone, collections, or they're treated as, a Kickstarter or a VC round of funding, things can go awry very quickly. And so, one of the first things we realize is that there is a very big lack of business experience in NFTs. And I think, a lot of business leaders, once they break into NFTs, they're going to be able to bring a lot more value, because you can't survive in business without bringing value first. And so, just learning and being extremely involved in the space. Eventually, Zan and I, we invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into NFTs. We got into Neo Tokyo near all-time high. So maybe we're not the best NFT traders of all time, but we were able to soak up, the environments, right? Joined a lot of different blue chips, joined a lot of different NFT projects, trying to see, what's so special about them and what's going to actually allow them to stick around for the long term. And unfortunately, we really didn't see too much of that. We didn't see enough of, okay, hey, like, this is going to keep this project around for years and years and years to come. One of the few exceptions, obviously, outlier being Neo Tokyo.
So once
Yeah, for
again,
sure. I
that is
mean,
our first talk with Neo Tokyo. Zan's going over what him and or Ready Player H is going over what him and Zan have done to get to the point where they are pretty much NFT experts.
frankly, I think the most valuable part of the Discord is the community. You really can't put a price on our community. So many people all the time tell us that the community that's in our environment is second to none. I think there's very, very few projects that can say that they have the level of community that we have. Obviously Neo Tokyo being one of them. Look at this community that we have here. So I think no matter what, that's the number one value. We have a group called the Shake Bros Inner Circle, where we've been building up that community for the last few years. And really, like, anytime we'll meet somebody in person that we really want to build a relationship with, post meeting them, we'll throw them in that Telegram group. And so that's where really the idea of the Investor Illuminati came up, is we were already doing it before ever launching it as an NFT. Hassan mentioned in terms of the algo, like, I've been working on building an algorithm personally just so it improves my trading for years. It's been literally over 2 years since I launched my first algo. That it wasn't nearly as good as what it is now. And really, I mean, we never even had plans of launching that algo as an NFT ever. Actually, once we decided we wanted to launch an NFT, once we joined Neo Tokyo, Hassan came to me and he was like, "Bro, trust me, we need to offer the algo as part of our NFT." And so, that's kind of why I
Which is
think we're
huge
doing
value.
things the way that we're doing them, is that we were doing it already. It was already happening. We just, obviously, in looking to build an NFT, we just, all these things were a natural consequence. The Investor Illuminati, providing value to our holders, making sure that we give them that technology like the algo, going out and providing them an immense growth experience by way of almost like a mastermind, things like that.
I think one of the most essential things to look at here is that Zan and Ready Player H were already successful outside of NFTs, and they're not using mint price and hype as basically a Kickstarter to whatever project they're working
They were
on.
already
They're doing
happening.
so much more.
In terms of what we're doing with the algorithm, how can an experienced user use the algorithm? Like Hassan just said, I think the best way to look at it is it's like a scope on a sniper. A great sniper is going to benefit greatly and vastly from throwing a red dot sight or a scope on their sniper. Someone who is not talented, I mean, it doesn't matter what you give them. There's going to be really marginal levels of value that are provided, not a lot. So it really is. And obviously, once they get the algo on their charts, it's just a really, really high hit rate tool. A little bit of background on what I've been able to do to build it. Over the last few years, I've spent thousands and thousands of hours on charts. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on mentors. I've literally studied almost every single indicator that exists. Like, I've truly gone down the rabbit hole. And when I want to go out and master something, I literally spend every dollar I have and use every single second of my time to master that thing. I did it with learning how to build a software, where I paid Becker for his Iron Circle Mastermind. I did it with learning how to generate money online with learning how to run ads to funnels and things like that and acquire clients. And so we did the same thing with learning how to trade. And through our experience of just looking at thousands of hours worth of chart data, honestly, I think a large percentage of me figuring out how to get a high hit rate algo was just trying and trying and trying and trying, even though I failed many times. And then second was just a certain degree of luck. I think it is 100%. I think there was a chance that I never would have figured it out. And I think there was a certain degree of luck where I kind of just stumbled upon it and I saw a certain set of confluences that when they were coming together was almost always right, and would catch a monstrous move. And so I was able to put those pieces together and code it out, bring on my developer, code out the different scenarios in which the algo could trigger. And, here we are. Although,
So once again, we're seeing Zan and Ready Player H. They were already successful in a Web2 business. They didn't need to go learn new skills or hype up a whole new project to be successful in crypto. And that's why Steady Stack is so much different than many of the other NFT projects that are taking place right now.
in terms of a strategy, you can certainly make it work, but I'm not that kind of trader. Is during choppy days, the algorithm doesn't work. And I tell everyone that I don't trade choppy days, and I don't think any momentum trader should trade choppy days. You can certainly figure it out, but the hit rate does take a hit during choppy days. And
I mean, the next step there would be to potentially have a different set of algorithms, one that is momentum based, one that is potentially regression to the mean base, or something to for the choppy days, right? So that another follow-up question. Awesome. Thank you for that.
And the beautiful thing is, and I'll just tag this in because I'm sure this will answer questions, right? Is like, There's a reason why like we didn't just stop at the algo and say, hey, like this is the only value prop and this is all we do, because that would only limit ourselves and the ability of this community, right? Like you don't have to be a trader to leverage this. The algorithm, first of all, it works on any time frame. So whether you're a day trader, swing trader, or you look at charts only on the 4 hour and the 1 day, it's going to give you some level of directionality, right, in confluence. But beyond that, right, like that's why we've added alpha callers in crypto, NFTs, options. That's why we've added AMAs, from everything like mental health to business to cash flow to real estate to trading, right? Like it's more than that, because we don't want to just limit ourselves to this one tool. Like, yes, the tool is there functioning as a backbone. So nobody can say, hey, like there's not like there isn't utility, right? Like they're hard utility. And it also allows us to introduce the concepts of subscription and software NFTs, which we truly believe will actually change the NFT landscape to a very large degree, because it introduces DRM, which is the true use case of why NFTs were made, which is digital rights management.
This is the most interesting thing to me, because I had a conversation with a college student about this very recently, about how NFTs are not going to be pictures forever. It's going to actually be digital receipts, real estate contracts, etc. Now, this next section is going to be with the Spectre AMA, which is going to go for probably about the next 5 minutes. It talks about how Spectre works to give small investors access to opportunities that are usually reserved for institutional investors, focusing on quality investments over quantity. They're talking about how important early access is to ROI, and they're giving examples of 2 projects from either end of the spectrum, one game, one that is infrastructure and tech related. Then they're also talking about Spectre versus Quantum, which is another one of the NFT investing launchpad focused projects. So let's dive right into the content.
Spectre actually began in Neo Tokyo. It was a group that was founded called the Neo Tokyo Investment Group. And it was meant to do what Spectre is doing now, right? We go to projects, we take these seed stage or private allocations, and usually what happens is you take a few like wealthy people's money, and then they get to invest and reap the benefits when the tokens unlock later on after the project has launched. What the Neo Tokyo Investment Group did was they basically decentralized the entire process. So you get the same allocations, except now you have maybe 1,000 people who can put in a few $100s. Depending on the size of allocation, like maybe anywhere from like a few $100s to $1,000. And so you're getting the same benefits in a smaller ratio that institutional players usually only get.
So finding the good projects there, focusing on quality over quantity, and not necessarily finding like the 1,000xers always, but more looking for a steady investment that will have a high probability of getting you the smaller but consistent multiples. So 5x's, 10x's, potentially 20x's, because if they accumulate and stack over time, you're still going to reach those 1,000x's in 3 or 4 moves rather than 1 move. So yeah, that's been our main focus, I would say.
Learning, if you really want those 10x's, sometimes it's not just about how well the project does straight off the bat, but also when did you get in? What will maximize your chances, where even if the game has a modest return, how early can you get in that for you it's almost an upside, like outsized return?
So, well, let's start with Dogami. That's an easier product. So Dogami is essentially the modern day Tamagotchi, I would say, for the 90s kids out there that remember what a Tamagotchi is. Essentially a pocket animal that you can take care of and treat. And in this case, it's more focused on dogs, puppies, that you can have on your phone. And the NFTs that they have are dogs built on the Tezos blockchain. And we managed to get an allocation there where we got both tokens, but also NFTs. So we got a whitelist for different people, and then also, I think it was it a $500 allocation or something?
Yeah.
And that was a big success at launch. I think the people who sold like right around the corner of getting the tokens got a 10x off of their investment, which was very good, very good. That was it. And then when it comes to Aoki, which is a totally separate beast, it's like on the opposite end of the spectrum of the projects we're looking at, and that is infrastructure and tech like for building projects inside of Web3. And our is essentially, I would say, an AR/VR platform or protocol where you are able to encode AR items and materials in an alternative reality or a virtual reality. And also the coolest thing
For you guys, where's the in on this? It's the Quantum Pass to be able to invest and partake.
Exactly. So in order to participate, you, one, need to have a Quantum Pass, but two, you also need to do KYC.
So Quantum is how so Spectre is the VC, and that is the B2B part that interacts with other projects. So what Quantum is, it's basically what we call our partner, and that is the B2C side, so the business to consumer side, where it's actually interacting with the people who buy our NFTs.
Yes, we have. So we are planning on having a good value exchange here. All the details have yet to be defined, so we're going to actually talk about that, I think, potentially end of this week, early next week, and see how we can essentially help build an end-to-end solution. So Spectre, in a sense, can come in the beginning by finding a good entry into a project, so you can get in very, very early and get tokens to the products that are interesting and stuff like that. And Steady Stack then has the alpha and the tooling that can help people make good decisions and improve on their trading strategies to actually get even more back when they are taking profits, right? At later stages with educational materials and helping each other grow with courses and media in general as well, I would say.
And then almost in line with AMA and working in tandem is education. And this is where I think Steady Stack is would be huge. You guys know so much. It's an insane amount. It cannot be unpacked in one AMA or one talk. And I think it would need to be a series of things over time.
All right, so that is our second set of content. That is the Spectre AMA. And it's a lot of really interesting things in there. I almost don't want to dissect it because we're already going kind of long. I need to keep moving through this content. But the ideas behind Spectre and Quantum are absolutely brilliant. So moving on, we have a AMA from Brian. Brian was sharing his thoughts on Azuki after the founder confessed to multiple rugs in the past. He was talking about how important it is for a project to get the mint process right, and he was asked if flipping NFTs will be realistic in the upcoming bear market, and talks about general strategy. We also had general crypto and NFT market advice, and then we had Steady Stack Los talking about the type of people Steady Stack wants to actually have in our Discord. So once again, let's dive straight into the content here with the Brian AMA.
Yeah, my sentiment is in line with yours. Just because the owner of a project decided to dox himself and he did some questionable things in the past, it doesn't devalue, in my opinion, what he's been able to accomplish with Azuki, the community, everything surrounding holders and owners of that NFT, right? So while negative news has an immediate impact because people are emotional, I still look at that as a potential buying opportunity because I think that it'll continue to provide value as time goes on. And, the guy's apologetic. He's like, listen, I messed up, but here I am. This is what I'm here to do. And I believe in second chances. I think that while it takes an immediate hit, I think it's going to continue to rise in the future. Just
so for anyone curious, in the background, this document that is being scrolled through is basically Zagabond's apology letter, basically him going through what happened in his past.
Gut feeling. Yeah, and listen, I'm looking from an ownership standpoint. At the end of the day, like when I launch my project, I know the value that I'm going to deliver. I know what the capability of my team and my network is and all of this. But I need to get, let's say, 3,000 people to also believe and see that vision. And it's a very challenging and sensitive time before the project actually mints, because if it doesn't mint out, then that could cause negative community sentiment, and like there's so many different factors that could derail or hurt a project. And having a successful mint is incredibly important. I've bought into projects that I've believed in that haven't minted out, and I got uncertain, and I just sold on the secondary. I was like, no, I'm going to stay away from this one. So I get both sides of that. You know, it's going to be tough to just buy into already minted projects and flip. It'd be kind of just like hoping you bet on the right horse. And people literally, like the majority of people in the NFT space have drained their crypto liquidity and are fully invested into NFT projects. I think that is a horrible, horrible decision, because you need the liquidity to jump in on the opportunities. And when it is a severe bear market, if you're fully tied up in NFTs, I mean, you could lose your shirt, right? So just be aware of that, and have some self-control that having Ethereum sitting in your wallet is not a bad thing.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that as well. And it's like a lot of people come in here and think that we're just looking for people like Brian who have had success in trading in the past. And yes, we are like trying to cultivate those people, and add those people to our community. But as well, it's like we just want to create a high level community, and high level doesn't just mean successful. It means like people that are hungry and want to learn everything they can, that can provide value. Even if they don't have the knowledge, they have the work ethic to do other things that provide value to everyone else in the community and things like that. Like people, it's like some people are new to trading, but they want to add value, so they create a podcast or they created a YouTube video. Just like people that are just like hungry to help and grow and add value to everyone else.
Just to help you understand, when you look at a game.
All right, so that was the AMA with Brian and kind of some of the knowledge nuggets that he dropped there. I very much agree with a lot of things that he said. First off, with Los and Steady Stack, you don't have to be an insanely successful person in order to have success in Steady Stack. Steady Stack can take you to success. Moving into the bear market, NFTs are going to be a rough place to be, and I don't, personally probably will not be in many projects aside from Steady Stack. So, moving into this final bit, we have the AMA with Parzival, Mr. Gunner, and Hustlepedia talking about crypto gaming. They want to talk about how to choose a game, where to find the gems early, and Parzival and Mr. Gunner's plan for Steady Stackers, which they have some seriously cool stuff for us lined up. So let's dive right into it.
Game, how to break it down, how to understand what the moving parts are, you know, what to pay attention to and what to focus on. So,
tokenomics. Number one, and in this stage, tokenomics have to be number one, because every project's tokenomics have at least one major flaw. So tokenomics are huge at this state. Gameplay loop is very important. It needs to be able to drive you to want to play again. And as mentioned, if it's the same exact thing over and over, that gameplay loop becomes very tiring, or, you know, not fun after a very short period of time. So tokenomics, team, gameplay loop. Niche, is it a first-person shooter? Is it an MMORPG? Who is it going to capture? Right? There's big audiences in every one of these spaces. Even these puzzle strategy games, they all have niches. Like Hearthstone, these card games. Like, there are players in every single niche. How many people can it capture?
Just for the pure capacity of how well are they networked? Are they resourced? Have they done things like this before? You know, do they have the conviction for the game, and are they tied into it enough? And are they doxed? I think that's a big one. You know, and if the game does get all too hard, and, you know, we talk about tokenomics models and stuff like that, and Hustle touched on that as well, and how a lot of them do have issues and things to work through and things to be conscious of, and whilst they aren't always upfront about it, or they don't always identify the problems before they happen, they tend to face them throughout the term of the game. And is that a point where they walk away, or do they have the conviction to work through it? And
I was going to say, one thing you always do too, like when you are comparing these games that I find really helpful, is look at the current games that are popular from the exact same genre. So for example, like the Imposters with Among Us, you can look at that, or the other werewolf variant games. You can use those numbers to figure out what's the average player rate, what are the key things that people like about the game, dislike about the game, And then you can bring back those learnings from those comparable games to the crypto game. And that way you can kind of know, okay, what's the maximum number of players more than likely to see this? What are some of the problem areas that if I see them execute on these factors, it'll be either a good or a bad sign. And that gives you a really easy way to measure a game. Similarly, how you would measure a game even that is not crypto.
So how do you find the early gems, like getting in early to the games that are great?
One thing I would say is I've been a big advocate of following developers who are involved in the gaming aspect of a chain. Following Avalanche Gaming developers from Ava Labs, following the guys from Polygon Games, following some Binance guys who work on the chain. I think if you integrate and follow some guys who aren't necessarily shillers or aren't necessarily influencers, when people see an influencer promoting something, they're already scared that it's going to be like exit liquidity situation. So I get that part for sure. But if you're seeing something on Twitter, you're definitely not too late. I would just take the information you see on Twitter and then further research it on DApp Radar, see the sentiment across Twitter, how many people are talking about it. One of the biggest things like across Twitter, how many people are talking about it.
My bad, guys. Sorry. I wanted to point out that DApp Radar is a fantastic app to see the prevalence of key terms on Twitter in a given time period.
A game can have going for it is community. So kind of see, how engaged are the people that do know about the project.
You go and look at who Becca's following. Go and find people in the space that are big and look at who they're spending their time watching on Twitter and YouTube and stuff like that. So don't be scared to have a crack.
This is our first one. And then we're going to really start flooding into how you can do it yourself. And we're going to do in-depth topic dives on how you can go through and comprehend a white paper, how you can do due diligence, how you can go through and find these things, what separates a good from bad. I'll let you on a bit of alpha, but we're going to do some things like a form that you guys can fill out anonymously or identifiably, where you can present projects that you want covered during the week, and we can jump on to things like this and we can do it in front of you.
There's the thread in the chat now as well, the crypto gaming one. Test yourself, find a game that you think's cool, do some DD on it, and then put it in there. And I think
whole thing set up with RPH and Xan, where people can join into a scout division, scout team, and present their little snippet of their DD that they've done, along with the project, etc. And then they can obviously interact with the community that's involved in that space and that is motivated to do those things, and hear their feedback, as well as having a set team that's proven themselves and that is able to do a filtering process. Anything possible that we can do to bring opportunity to the community, and we can filter these things through with our scout team we're going to create. And I mean, if there's anybody in here that's interested in being a part of that, then you feel free to jump in my DMs, send me a friend request on Discord.
Because at the end of
All right, everyone, and that is going to wrap up our content for today. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's Speed Stackin AMA Recap. Thank you so much for giving us your time, and I hope that we were able to provide some value as we took 4 hours of content and kind of crunched it down into this quick 20-minute video, and for you guys around a 27-minute podcast. If you guys want any other content featured in this, feel free to reach out to us, because once again, this project is built by the community for the community, and we're going to love to see your guys' input. Thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and your week, and remember to keep on steady stacking. See you guys.